Welcome to the 2024 Reading is Fun Week Book Talk. I'm your host today, April Glasgow. Now, Reading is Fun Week is a week of activities designed to create a love for reading. This year's theme is Reading Transforms You. The Ministry of Education's aim is to highlight how reading can transform a person. Now, every day this week, we will talk to a new author and poet about a different book that they've written. We will get to hear excerpts from the featured books and talk about the book and the author. Come, join me for today's book talk.
It's Reading is Fun Week once again, and I'm encouraging everyone to read because reading empowers by opening new possibilities.
Read BVR, read. I get a book in your hand and read BVR, read. You change your future, yes you can, BVR, read. Read it out loud and read it proud, BVR, read. Oh BVR, read. Oh BVR.
With me today, I have author Dr. Charles Wheatley, and he's going to talk about the book that he brought today.
Thank you. The title of the book is The Story of Red Bay. Now, I believe all of you pass Red Bay all the time, but you don't know it's Red Bay. Red Bay is in East End, and it was in the 1940s, 50s, and early 60s. It was really the center of commerce of that area. In the days when you had the sailing boats, all the boats left from Red Bay to go to the islands, Antigua, St. Kitts, Santo Domingo, Cuba. They all would leave from that port. And, the days when the men used to work on the sugarcane field, and those from the eastern end would leave from that point, and they would travel to the Dominican Republic. Those who go to St. Croix went in the early 50s, went from there. So it was the port where, on the eastern end of the island, where everybody moved, and all the ferries that took passengers from East End to Road Town would go into Red Bay. I guess you're too young to know the ferries.
Yeah.
Yes, the Islander. You heard about that name. And we had some ferries that took, before the days of cars, people traveled to Road Town from the outer islands by sea. So there were ferries that took people from East End to Road Town weekly, particularly on Saturday, but sometimes during the week, and they also took them to St. Thomas from that port. Oh. So you could leave that port in East End, stop into Road Town, clear, and go straight to St. Thomas on the Joan of Arc or any of the boats. So it was like the center of the commerce in the area. That's why I wrote about it, because the generations would not know, because the place has been changed through reclamation. You wouldn't know that there was a bay there. Now, if you passed, you know where the gas station is in East End?
Yes.
Well, that's the location. So, and if you notice that there are some red rocks on the outs in the sea, and if you notice on the hill just above, you see some red rocks also. It was one quarry of rocks. All there was one quarry of red rocks before they blasted them to put a road.
Hence the name Red Bay.
Red Bay, yes.
Yeah. That's a history lesson right there. Okay, what can you share with us, an excerpt from the book that you think readers would be interested in?
I'll just say one more thing, which would probably have historical significance. In the 1940s and early 50s, the British ships, the training ships for the sailors, when they have their period of rest, they would come in and anchor off Beef Island, a training ship accompanied by battleship, maybe about 4 or 5 of them. And they would be there for about a week or 2 weeks, and the sailors would come to shore, and they would come to shore at East End. And they would then travel to different parts of the island. They would play games, cricket and so with the fleet. And sometimes the band from the ship would even put on concerts for the people at East End through that. So that was another thing through the ships. They would. The other thing is in the 1920s, around 27, there was a shack company in that area. Now the company had a branch in Red Hook. So what they would do, they would let the local people go out and catch sharks. I mean, to have a chapter on that, but I wouldn't read all of that. But they would catch the sharks and bring them in. Sharks weighing 1,200 pounds, 12, so on, 10,000 pounds, and so on. When they only want the liver, they would boil the liver, get the oil, and get shark oil. You heard about shark oil?
Yes.
And yes, so they would then ship it to Red Hook in St. Thomas, and then it would go off. They boil it in something like, looking like this. My mother lived in that area, and she, as a girl, so she took one of the cauldron that they used to boil the shark oil in, this. And I have it in my yard now.
Oh.
From 1927. It looks similar to those that they used to use in the sugar factory, right? You remember those? Where they boil the sugar? Are you too young for that? Yes, so the book takes you through, it was a fishing port. When I say fishing port, I mean all the fishermen would come in there and they would sell their fish. So, you know the famous conch shell. Mm-hmm. So when people heard shell, they would know, hail for Red Bay. And there you would see I can show you a picture of, here is selling fish that was painted by Ruben, captured it from me. That's so.
Love it.
So that was one of the other functions. But as children, they used it for bathing. It was the beach also. Yes, and so in summer, all the children would spend the summer bathing in that area. And because it was like what you would equivalent of Long Bay now. You wouldn't have to go to Long Bay, you go to Red Bay, and you would have fun. So it was really, as I say, a very important area in the Eastern area, and it has changed now. So that's why I wrote the book, that anyone who is interested can read it and see what took place in the past in that area. So I read a little section from you. Perhaps you might be interested in the fishermen section. There was another type of fishermen who fished with fish traps called fish pots. They selected various fishing grounds, which they called banks, and set their traps. After they collected the catch from their traps, they too would head for Red Bay, where the sale would take place. Before the construction of Blackburn Highway, Blackburn Road is that road that started at Fort Hill and ended at Chapel Hill. That piece of road is called Blackburn Highway. I don't see the sign saying so, but that's what it is officially. And it was built in 1956. There was a number of small bays along the coast where fish was sold. Two of these bays are Joe Reimer's Bay and James Young, where the fish was landed. That was where the sale usually took place. There was a few exceptions when the fishermen would ask customers to come to their homes where the sale would take place. Today, Red Bay is still a fishing port in East End, but in a different way. The new reclamation land in the bay will accommodate a modern facility for fishermen, as we hope, Their development will facilitate launching boats, pulling boats, and cleaning boats. That's what they are hoping to do in the area now in the future. So there will also be parking accommodation, and these developments would be called a new rate, I said.
Thank you, Dr. Wheatley. So this year's theme for Reading is Fun Week is Reading Transforms You. How would you say writing the book and also even being a writer, how has that transformed you?
Writing the book transformed. Well, I suppose I could say that it enabled me to review some of the experiences I had and get new insights into the changes that have taken place over the years. Because as a boy, when I was my first 2 years or 3 years of life, I spent at Wheatley. I lived just where I told you that my mother lived there, so I lived there where I told you the Shack company was at, where the Eastern Clinic is now,
Yes.
on that same spot. So that's where I spent my first 3 years of life. So now that's, if I am telling you I'm 86, how many years that is now ago?
83.
83 years ago. So, you could go in the sea and swim then. 83 years today, you can't go in the sea and swim. So that's, again, was a revelation for me because I remember the early years that I spent there going into the sea and catching fish online and that. And there were little whelks. You pick them off the rocks and that kind of thing. I've had fun. But there were always an eel which was lurking there and ready to pounce, and you had to be extremely careful. They lived under the rocks. We call them congos in the local language here, but the eels, yeah. So they were plentiful. I don't see that many of them tonight. So I was able to relive some of my experiences and also add new experiences. And because when I was writing this book, I had to get photographers and so forth to take pictures and so forth, and look at the whole area and so forth. So it was a new experience for me. In terms of reading, it might not have been, but in terms of experiences and so forth and research, because I am one of those persons who believe in my heritage. Because I'm the product of what I experienced all through my years. So if you don't know your heritage, you don't know who you belong to, you don't know where you come from, you're a lost cat.
The truth. It's true. It's true. Wow. Thank you, Dr. Wheatley.
Okay.
I am April Glasgow. Thank you for joining me on today's book talk. Before we wrap up, though, Dr. Wheatley, is there anything you would like to share with our audience before we close?
Ask your question. How do you enjoy today's society?
I think that it's changing, and I am trying to embrace the changes and not trying to control it, because I know God is in control. And the reason I'm even here right now doing this interview is because I love books and I read, and I'm hoping that this also inspires more persons to not only write, but also to read more. But there's a reason you posed that question.
Well, remember I told you that I'm 86 years old.
Yes.
So,
Praise God.
so the experiences that I have had and the changes that I've seen in this community have been dramatic. So, sometimes today, I really say one statement, cry my beloved country, because of some of the things that I see going on and the deterioration and that kind of thing. So that's why I ask you how you because to me, we are interrelated. Everybody's interrelated. No one is an island.
True.
And we are in a space where we have to be accommodated and we have to share that space. And many of us have not learned how to share that space. And that because we have not learned how to share the space that we are living in, we have conflicts. And
You're right.
and those conflicts sometimes they get out of hand and they create a lot of problems. We have conflicts on the road because we cannot share the road. Right? That's where you see a lot of it, even more than other. And you have conflicts where you have boundaries with land and people saying you're gone over on my land, you take some of my land. The land is one of the things that I believe has caused a lot of sin in the BVI more than anything else. Land disputes.
Yeah, I've heard about it.
Yes, right. So I'm saying one of the things I still think we have to learn to this, how to live in the space that we have. We have not yet learned. And that's, to me, is the biggest challenge we have. And I find that our leaders don't understand how to help people to learn to live in the space what they have. What you say about that? That's why I ask you.
Well, you left me and the listeners, everyone who's watching with a lot to think about. Very thought provoking.
Yeah, because once we can learn to live in the space that we have, then everything else would fall in place. But you have to. I think that's my biggest challenge, and I see around us. Not only physically, but let's take ethnically. We have to learn to appreciate other people.
Yes.
Appreciating other people doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to forget who you are.
Absolutely. You're right.
So that again is another issue that we need to address seriously. Okay, learn to live. If you're going to live in the space we have, so I'm happily then. Let's put it that way.
Wow.
Anyhow, I'm not lecturing.
No, not at all. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
I would like to write about that one of these days.
Looking forward to that book. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, audience. I am April Glasgow. Thank you for joining me on today's book talk. This year's theme is Reading Transforms You.
Read it out loud and read it proud, BVRE. Oh, BVRE. Oh, BVRE.